Eleanor Voss had 40 minutes before her flight, and no particular reason to slow down. She was 63, a retired principal woman who had spent 31 years making sure children were seen, and she was tired, rolling her carry-on through Concourse C, with her coffee going cold in her hand, not looking for anything except Gate 14. She almost didn't look up. The boy was standing at the counter. He was 17, maybe 18, tall, neat, in a gray hoodie and dark jeans, a backpack over one shoulder, printed boarding pass held in both hands the way people hold something they want to keep safe. He was the only one at the counter. The line had moved around him, the way water moves around a stone. Passengers sliding past with their phones already out, their minds already on the overhead bins and the window seats. Nobody looked at him twice. The gate agent, her name tag read Paula, was looking at the boarding pass the way a customs officer looks at a passport from a country she's never trusted. She turned it over. She set it down. She typed something. She picked it up again. "I'm going to need you to step aside while I verify this," Paula said. "I've been here since 2:40, the boy said. His voice was quiet, not angry quiet, the kind of quiet that comes from deciding, somewhere before this moment, not to give anyone a reason. "The flight board's at 3:15. I understand that. This ticket is showing some irregularities, and I need to confirm the purchase before I can scan it." Eleanor stopped walking. She told herself it was the coffee. She needed to throw it away. There was a bin right there. She stepped to the side of the concourse and dropped the cup and did not move. The boy said his name, Darius Cole. He said it clearly. The way you say a thing you've said before to people who weren't listening the first time. He gave the confirmation number from memory. 11 digits, no hesitation, and watched Paula type it in and study the screen and type something. "The system's showing a flag," Paula said. "What kind of flag?" "A verification flag. It means the purchase needs to be confirmed with the original payment method. My grandmother bought it. She's at home. I can call her. That would take time we don't have before boarding closes." A man in a suit stepped around them without slowing. A woman with 2 children sailed past, the children's sneakers lighting up on the carpet. Nobody stopped. The line fed itself through the scanner and disappeared down the jetway, and Darius Cole stood at the counter with his boarding pass in his hands, and his confirmation number already given, and his voice still level. And Eleanor Voss stood 12 feet away and felt something she recognized from 31 years in schools. Child being made to prove he belonged in a room that had already decided he didn't. She walked to the counter. She didn't have a speech prepared. She was not in that moment thinking about anything except what she would want someone to do if it were her grandson standing there. "Excuse me," she said. "I've been watching for a few minutes. Can you tell me what the specific irregularity is? Because I heard him give you an 11-digit confirmation number, and I watched you type it in, and I'm wondering what the system actually returned." Paula looked at her with the measured patience of someone who does not appreciate the audience. "Ma'am, this is a private transaction between myself and this passenger. He's a minor traveling alone, and you've held him at this counter for..." Eleanor glanced at her watch. "At least 8 minutes, while the rest of the line was processed. I'd like to understand the policy that requires that." Behind her, she heard someone stop. She didn't turn around. Then another set of footsteps slowed. A man's voice mild. "Yeah, I'd like to know that too, actually." She still didn't turn. She kept her eyes on Paula's face and watched the calculation happening there. The number of people, the time until boarding closed, the question that had no clean answer. "Let me get the supervisor," Paula said. "Thank you," Eleanor said. "That would be helpful." Darius had not moved. He was standing with the same quiet she'd noticed at the start, not a performance of calm, but the real thing, the kind that costs something to maintain. Eleanor stepped to his side. She didn't say anything for a moment. "You memorized the confirmation number," she said finally, low enough that it was just for him. He looked at her sideways. "My grandmother made me say it back to her 4 times before she'd let me leave." Eleanor almost smiled. "Smart woman." The supervisor came out from the door behind the counter, a younger man, early 30s. His name tag reading Garrett. He had the look of someone who had been flagged before for things he didn't personally cause, and knew exactly what kind of conversation he was walking into. He took the boarding pass. He looked at the screen. He typed the confirmation number himself, watching the return. He turned to Paula, with an expression that was not unkind, but was not ambiguous either. And he said something to her in a voice too low to carry. Then he turned to Darius. "Mr. Cole." He held out the boarding pass. "Your ticket is valid." There was no irregularity in the system. The flag Paula referenced is a legacy display artifact that our agents are trained to look past. "I apologize for the delay." He paused. "We'd like to board you now, ahead of the general queue as a courtesy." Darius took his boarding pass back. He held it the same way he'd held it before, carefully. But something had changed in his shoulders, a fraction of tension released, and Eleanor saw it because she'd spent 31 years learning to see exactly that. "Thank you," Darius said. Garrett nodded. Then he looked at Eleanor. "Thank you as well, ma'am." The words carried more than the words. She walked with Darius to the jetway door. She had no reason to. Her gate was 2 down. Her flight wasn't boarding for 20 minutes. But she walked with him anyway, and he let her, she thought. That was its own kind of dignity. The letting. At the door he turned and looked at her properly for the first time. He was young. She'd known that. But she saw now the particular exhaustion of someone who has had to be composed in situations that should not have. Acquired it over and over for a long time. "Does that happen to you a lot?" she asked. She knew the answer. He thought about it. "Enough," he said. "Then, you didn't have to stop. I know most people don't. I know that too." He nodded once, a real nod, not a polite one, and walked down the jetway with his backpack on his shoulder, and Eleanor stood there until the door closed behind him. Garrett found her at her own gate 20 minutes later. He had a business card, the district compliance officer's, and he told her that he had Paula's log for the past 90 days, and that she was not the first person to be asked for this kind of additional documentation at this counter. He told her the compliance officer would be in contact with Eleanor as a witness within 48 hours. He told her that Paula had been placed on administrative review pending the outcome of that audit. He thanked her again and left. Eleanor sat with her carry-on between her knees and thought about the boy memorizing 11 digits because his grandmother had made him say them back 4 times. She thought about all the boys and girls she'd seen in 31 years who had walked into a room already carrying that. The extra preparation, the confirmation number committed to memory, the voice trained to stay quiet. Not because they were less prepared than anyone else, because they knew, with a knowledge earned before they were old enough to have earned it, that they would be asked to prove what nobody else had to prove. She thought about how easy it would have been to keep walking. She thought about that for a long time. Darius Cole's flight landed on time. He texted his grandmother the confirmation number again, out of habit, and then added, "A lady stopped. She didn't have to." He sat back in his seat and looked out at the clouds, and did not think of anything more complicated than that. Down in Concourse C, compliance audit was already open. 90 days of logs, 11 names. The counter would be staffed differently by morning.